Dear sisters, brothers, and beloved soulmates, I am Krishna Vadapalli, the owner of this channel, dedicated to promoting a moral and spiritual society worldwide. Our main objective is to share the epic story of the Mahabharata, which serves as a rich collection of spiritual and moral teachings. This includes the Bhagavad Gita, a profound source of enlightenment for all humanity. I kindly ask all viewers to subscribe, like, and share this channel to support our mission. The Mahabharata comprises a total of 589 stories, each contributing to our understanding of life and spirituality. Please subscribe and share and support me for more likewise. Thank you. Yours, Vadapalli Ramakrishna, ancient yoga trainer.
The Mahabharata is much more than just an epic. It is a profound journey through the principles of life, duty, and spirituality. Deeply rooted in Hindu Sanatana Dharma, it explores timeless questions of morality, justice, and the path to righteousness, illustrating how every action and choice carries deeper meaning tied to our spiritual beliefs. At its core, the Mahabharata revolves around the struggle between good and evil, embodied by the Pandavas and Kauravas, set against the backdrop of the great Kurukshetra war. However, this epic is not merely a battle of armies, it is a battle of Dharma and Adharma, of right and wrong, within every individual. Through its characters, from the wise and divine Lord Krishna to the righteous Pandavas and even the flawed Kauravas, the Mahabharata reveals the complexities of human nature and emphasizes the importance of aligning with Dharma. As we delve into this ancient text, we will explore how the Mahabharata connects to the teachings of Sanatana Dharma, offering valuable insights into concepts like karma, action and consequence, dharma, righteousness, and moksha, liberation. This timeless story continues to guide millions, showing us how to navigate the challenges of life with wisdom, integrity, and devotion. Many years ago, in the Naimishranya forest, the chieftain Shaunaka, along with other sages, performed a great sacrifice called Satra. After 12 long years, Ugrasravasa, the son of Ramharshana, who was observing the sacrifice, invited Suta, a skilled narrator of religious stories and Puranas, to Naimishranya. Suta's arrival brought new life to the gathering, and everyone was filled with joy. He was warmly welcomed and honored with offerings of arghya. Once satisfied, Suta was surrounded by the people, and they began to ask him questions. One of the sages asked, "Sir, we had expected you to arrive at the beginning of the yajna. Why did you delay so much? Did you receive our invitation?" Suta replied, "Your Majesty, your invitation reached me without issue. However, before coming here, I was invited to the snake sacrifice performed by Maharaja Janmeja. I attended that, and that is the reason for my delay." The sages, surprised, asked, "We have heard that Janmeja is a righteous king and a descendant of the Pandavas. Given the many important things a king could do, such as Rajsuya or Ashwamedha sacrifices, why did he perform this snake sacrifice? There doesn't seem to be a strong reason. Could you explain?" Suta responded, "There is a reason. Janmeja's father, Parikshit, died due to a curse from Taksaka, the king of serpents. Since Janmeja was a child at that time, he didn't know the full details of the events. Recently, a Brahman named Udanka came and reminded him of the curse, leading Janmeja to perform the snake sacrifice as a way to avenge his father's death." The sages, intrigued, asked, "Who is this Udanka, and why did he incite the king to undertake such a sacrifice?" Suta then began to explain further. A great sage named Pailuda had a disciple named Udanka. After completing his education, Udanka decided to become a householder, and Pailuda blessed him. On this occasion, Udanka asked his guru if he could offer any Guru Dakshina. Pailuda, being a member of the Mukta Sangh, replied that he had no personal desires and that if his wife asked him to do something, he should fulfill that request. Udanka then bowed to his guru's wife and explained the task he had come to fulfill. She was pleased and said, "My dear, today I wish to perform an auspicious fast on the 4th day. There is a king named Posyu nearby, and his wife is a great devotee. She possesses beautiful and magnificent earrings. If you go to her, ask for them, and bring them to me. I will wear them and complete my fast." Udanka immediately set out, and with Posyu's permission, he reached the queen's residence and met Sosya Mahadevi. He explained his mission, and Sosya Mahadevi, being a wise and virtuous woman, gladly granted his request. She handed him her kundalas, earrings, but cautioned him, "My dear, for a long time, the Naga king Takshaka has been trying to steal these kundalas. You must be very careful." Udanka assured her that Takshaka could not harm him, and that there was no need for her to worry. With that, Udanka took the kundalas and set off to return to his guru's temple. Takshaka steals the kundalas. On his way back, a Digambara monk appeared to Udanka. The monk would appear and disappear, following Udanka momentarily at a time. After some time, Udanka reached a pond and placed the pots on a clean spot along the bank before entering the pond to take a bath. While Udanka was bathing, the Digambara monk, who had been following him, suddenly appeared, seized the pots, and fled. Udanka quickly chased after him and caught him. However, the monk immediately transformed into Takshaka, the Naga king, and disappeared into the Naga world through a hole in the earth nearby. Udanka, determined to retrieve the pots, followed him through the same hole and entered the kingdom of snakes. Once there, Udanka could not find Takshaka, so he prayed to the serpent people, hoping to find him. Udankakrita Nagapradhana vertical bar made a great and heavy earth, filled with countless forests, mountains, rivers, and oceans, be so immense that it would be unbearable to carry even the entire earth on its shoulders. May the supreme leader of the universe, the one who lies in the ocean, the unshakable being, who destroys the wicked, who is eternal, and the supreme entity, Adisesha, be pleased with me. May the great leader, Vasuki, who has undergone intense austerities in the past, protect the serpent race from harm, even from the gods and demons. With feet that shine like jewels from the crowns of gods and demons who eternally bow to him, and who is the adornment of the Supreme Lord, the husband of Girijadevi, may he forever bless us. In the worlds of gods and men, filled with the power of both, may Takshaka, the fierce and noble serpent king, be pleased with us. Whether in the mountains of his clan, in the caves of those mountains, or the great fields of life, moving freely, accompanied by the best of beasts and the king of snakes, may Takshaka, with his powerful presence, always be pleased with us. Indra grants a boon to Udanka. Udanka prayed to all the reptiles in the manner described above and stood with his eyes closed, yet the kundalas did not fall into the well, nor did Takshaka, the god of the kundalas who had stolen them, appear. But when Udanka opened his eyes, a vision appeared before him. He saw two women weaving a beautiful cloth with black and white threads on the same loom. 6 young men were turning a 12-bladed wheel, and on a tall horse, a man with great height and strong arms was sitting. Udanka praised everyone he saw with the most beautiful Vedic mantras. The man on the horse, who had granted him the vision, said, "Ask whatever you want." Udanka requested that the entire ruling class of the sinful race be made to obey him. The man told him that if he blew hard into the ear of his horse, it would happen. Udanka followed the instructions, and immediately, Terrible flames of fire erupted from the horse's ear, surrounding the Naga kingdom. The Naga king, Ikshansrotra, frightened by the flames, quickly crawled to Udanka and presented the kundalas. This pleased the Brahman, and once satisfied, the horse ceased spewing fire. Fearing that his unexpected journey to the Naga world might result in being separated from his guru's family, Udanka was granted the boon to ride on the horse, which carried him back to the guru's family before disappearing. At the right time, Udanka delivered the kundalas to the guru's wife and asked the guru to explain the details of his journey. The teacher replied, "Of the two dancers you saw, one was Dhata and the other was Vidhata. The black threads they wove represent the nights, and the white threads represent the days. The wheel represents the year, with its 12 leaves symbolizing the 12 months. The 6 seasons are represented by the Kumarsakkam that spins it. The man you saw was Indra, and the Gandharv riding him was Agni." After explaining everything in detail, the teacher blessed Udanka, saying, "Now you may go in peace." Udanka left the Guru's clan and performed penance for several years. However, the hatred he still felt for Takshaka and all snakes grew stronger, fueling his desire for revenge. He felt that the task, which was not his to do, should be taken up by someone more capable. In his mind, the great king Janmezya appeared. Without hesitation, Udanka set out to meet him. Udanka encourages Janmeja to perform the snake sacrifice. After completely crushing the rebellion in Taxila and further consolidating his supremacy, King Janmeja returned to Hastinapur amid triumphant celebrations. While he was caught up in the excitement of victory, Udanka entered the royal court. He blessed the king with sacred Vedic mantras and said, "O king, you are a great ruler to whom all the people of the world should bow down. However, I regret to inform you that you have neglected a crucial task that you must address." Janmeja, surprised, responded, "Brahman, immediately tell me what treasure I have neglected. Whatever it may be, you need not hesitate, for I have vowed not to reject the requests of Brahmans or the orders of the Vedas. Therefore, speak fearlessly, O earth god." Udanka then spoke, "King, it is true that I will benefit a little from what I am about to tell you, but this is a matter for you to consider. You must immediately perform the snake sacrifice. Why do I say this? Your father, Parikshit, was killed by the Naga king Takshaka. With the word of just one Brahman, you must teach that snake king a lesson for the crime he committed. It is your most important duty to avenge your father's murder." Hearing this, Janmeja asked Vipravarya, "You said that you have a lot of profit in this matter. What is that?" Udanka explained, "The obstacle that Takshaka caused that day still troubles me, and it is hindering my peace of mind. My penance and studies are not progressing properly because of it. If you perform the snake sacrifice and destroy Takshaka and his people, I will be able to perform my Varnasramadharma with a clear mind. In short, it is your responsibility, O king, to prevent me from facing any further obstacles in my penance. That is my gain." The people, after reflecting on Udanka's words, turned to the ministers and said, "Is what this Brahman says about my father's death true? If so, please tell me the full details of the incident." The old ministers tell about the death of Parikshit. Some old ministers present in the assembly recounted the story of King Parikshit's death. They explained that Parikshit once went hunting and killed an animal. The injured animal fled, and Parikshit chased it until he reached the ashram of a sage named Shamiku. Parikshit, thirsty, asked the sage, who was in deep meditation, for some fresh water. However, the sage remained silent, engrossed in his meditation. In anger, Parikshit, feeling slighted, placed the dead snake he found nearby around the sage's neck. When the sage's son, Shrungi, arrived and saw the dead snake around his father's neck, he immediately understood that it was an intentional act. In a fit of anger, Shrungi cursed, "May the one who put the foul snake around my father's neck be bitten by the most ferocious of all snakes, Takshaka, on the 7th day from today." When the sage, Shamiku, opened his eyes, he was shocked to discover that his son had placed the curse. Realizing what had happened through his divine vision, he expressed confusion and regret. "Son, before cursing, you should know who is guilty and whether they deserve such a curse. The one you have cursed is the king of this land. Cursing a king and making the kingdom unstable is not right for people like us," he said with a sigh. He then sent his disciple, Gauramukhu, to inform Parikshit about the curse and to find ways to prevent it. Upon learning of the curse, Parikshit became worried and sought refuge in his impregnable palace, which was so secure that not even the wind could enter. 6 days passed, and on the 7th day, Takshaka, the Naga king, set out for Hastinapur to fulfill the curse. On his way, the demon Kashyapa, known for his expertise in casting snake spells, appeared. Realizing that Kashyapa could potentially save Parikshit, Takshaka became angry with himself and stopped to confront him. Kashyapa, skilled in magic, showed Takshaka that no one could be revived after being bitten by him. Takshaka, in frustration, asked Kashyapa to revive a tree that had been bitten by a snake, and Kashyapa performed the magic, restoring the tree to life. Astounded, Takshaka realized the power of Kashyapa and knew that Parikshit could be saved. However, after this encounter, Takshaka continued his journey and reached Karipuram, where he sent serpents in human form to Parikshit. These serpents offered the king fruits and nuts, and as Parikshit was about to eat them, the poison within them took effect. The Bhujangadinath, who had been hidden in the form of a small insect, revealed himself and bit Parikshit, causing his death. When the ministers finished recounting this, Udanka responded, "O king, I believe that Shrungi's curse was a result of the insult to his father. Thus, Takshaka's act of biting your father is justified as part of the curse. However, think how unrighteous it is to send away the magician who came to save the king by tempting him. This shows that killing Parikshit was deemed more important than fulfilling the curse. Consider why a poisonous creature, in the form of a snake, should enter the royal palace through magical means. O king, take revenge on the one who killed your father and destroy the entire race of Takshaka. The only way to do this is through a snake sacrifice." Evidence of Takshaka's mistake. As soon as Udanka spoke, Janmeja replied, "Gharmara. Even if you say so, I believe that Takshaka's tempting of Kashyapa is an intolerable deception. But neither you nor the ministers were present at that time. How did you come to know about it? Is there any evidence of Takshaka's deception?" The ministers responded, "Yes, Lord." They explained, "On that day, Takshaka was chopping wood from a tree in the forest when the tree fell, and he died along with it. However, he was later revived by the magic of Kashyapa. During this time, Takshaka overheard the entire conversation of the Bhusura Bhujangas. Fearing for his life, he remained hidden in the tree until they had left. Once they departed, he quickly ran to inform them of the conversation, but before he could deliver the news, an unexpected turn of events occurred. When the ministers presented this evidence, Janmeja became enraged at the snakes for their deceit. He immediately ordered the preparations for the snake sacrifice to begin. The snake sacrifice of the people of Jaya. The Pannaga Yajna, a ritual that had not been performed since the beginning of the current Kalpa, was now underway and proceeding smoothly. As the time for initiation drew near, King Janmeja, accompanied by his consort, Vapusht Devi, began the ritual. Many great sages were chosen to oversee the yajna. Chandabhargava, renowned in the Chavana dynasty, served as the host, Jamini, the illuminator of Kutsaku, as the illuminant, Sharyava as Brahma, and Pingala as the Advaryu. Prominent sages such as Vyasa, Uddalka, Pramataka, Svetketa, Pingala, Asipdevala, Narda, Parvata, Atreya, Kunda, Jathra, Kalveta, Shrutasrava, Kohla, Devsharma, Maudgalya, and Samsorbhadi were all present at the gathering, marking the beginning of the snake feast. As the yajna proceeded, the priests, dressed in black robes, became visibly affected by the smoke from the sacrificial fire. A strange and terrifying atmosphere filled the air. The hotas, chanting in unison, called each snake to the fire, where they were consumed by the flames. The snakes writhed in agony, crying out for help as they fell into the fire, jumping and clinging to one another in a futile attempt to escape. They were in indescribable distress, unable to comprehend what was happening to them. Various types of snakes, black, white, blue, golden, old, young, large, and small, fell into the fire in different postures, their bodies contorted in confusion. Some had elephant-like trunks or gourd-like thin bodies, while others were as long as a yojana. The burning snakes emitted horrific sounds, and the acrid smell of their fat and brains burning filled the air. The scene was filled with the changing colors of smoke, creating an unimaginable spectacle of suffering and destruction. Indra gives Takshaka a guarantee. When it was revealed that Janmejya's sacrifice was about to begin, Takshaka, the king of serpents, became filled with fear. Upon hearing of the impending danger, he sought refuge with Indra, the king of the gods, pleading for his protection. Indra, though concerned, remembered a statement from Vidhata, who had foretold that divine serpents like Seshu and Vasuki, along with other such snakes, would not be harmed during the sacrifice. Reassured by this prophecy, Indra offered Takshaka his protection. Despite this promise, Takshaka remained fearful and, in a state of deep anxiety, curled up and lay next to Amarendra, still trembling with fear. A curse on snakes. The sages, upon hearing the Suta's narration, asked, "O Suta, the all-knowing mystic, why did the snakes, the most powerful beings in all creation, have to be burned in the terrible flames of fire?" The Suta, wishing to clear their doubts, began explaining. In the ancient era, Kashyapa Prajapati, desiring sons for his children, asked his wives, Kadruva and Vinta, to pray for them. Both prayed for thousands of years, and when Kashyapa asked them what they desired, Kadruva, pleased with the service, asked for 1,000 strong and brilliant sons, while Vinta asked for 2 sons who were stronger and more powerful than Kadruva's sons. Kashyapa granted their wishes and told them to take care of their pregnancies. Kadruva became pregnant and soon gave birth to great serpent kings like Sesha, Vasuki, Takshaka, and Karkotka. However, Vinta, who had laid 2 eggs, was saddened as they did not hatch immediately. In her impatience, she broke one of the eggs, and from it was born a legless demon, who cursed her, saying, "You have made me incomplete out of jealousy, and for this, you shall serve your stepmother for 500 years. He then foretold that the second egg would hatch a son, who would be strong and free her from her bondage. Later, the gods and demons decided to churn the ocean of milk to obtain nectar. Lord Vishnu helped by bringing the Mandar mountain and using it as a churning rod while Vasuki served as the rope. During the churning, poison was produced first, which Lord Shiva swallowed, earning the name Garlakantha. The churning also brought forth many divine beings, including the moon, Lakshmi, Uchashrava, and Kamadhenu, while the nectar was finally produced. However, the demons stole the nectar, and Lord Vishnu, in the form of Mohini, tricked them and gave it to the gods. The gods, with Indra's protection, safeguarded the nectar. One day, Kadruva and Vinta went to the seashore for a picnic, where they saw the divine horse Uchchashrava. Kadruva, insisting that its tail was black despite Vinta's belief that it was white, challenged her to a bet. Kadruva told Vinta that if the tail was black, Vinta would become her maid, but if it was white, Kadruva would serve her. Kadruva then secretly instructed her sons to make the tail appear black by holding it. Despite the righteous advice of her sons, Sheshu and Vasuki, Kadruva cursed them for not obeying her, saying they would perish in Janmejaya's snake sacrifice. Fearing the curse, the sons did as instructed, and when they showed Vinta the black tail, she, believing her stepmother, agreed to serve her. The story of Garuda. Nearly 500 years passed, and the second egg of Vinta finally hatched, giving birth to the mighty bird Garuda. As soon as he was born, he soared into the sky, circled it once, and bowed down to his mother. Vinta was overjoyed. However, Kadru and the Nagas constantly mocked Garuda, calling him the son of a maid. Kadru would carry her Naga sons on her back while hunting, and Garuda did the same. One day, while carrying the Nagas on his back, he flew toward the sun. The intense heat caused the Nagas to faint. Seeing this, Kadru scolded Garuda and prayed to Indra, who caused rain to fall and revived the Nagas. Garuda was deeply hurt by his stepmother's words and returned to his mother, asking, "Why are we slaves?" Vinta then told him the entire story. Determined to free himself and his mother, Garuda approached the Nagas and proposed, "If I bring you a pot of nectar from the heavens, will you release us from servitude?" The Nagas agreed. Garuda then informed his mother of his mission and sought her blessing. Bowing to her, he asked, "I need food to gain strength. Tell me where I can find it." Vinta advised him, "My dear, there are many Nishadas in the ocean who cause trouble to the world. Eat them, but do not eat Brahmans." Garuda asked, "Mother, how will I recognize a Brahman?" She replied, "A Brahman will choke you and hurt you. That is the sign." Garuda then attempted to swallow all the Nishadas in the sea in one gulp, but suddenly something stuck in his throat. A voice from above said, "There is a Brahman inside, let him go." A figure in the form of a Nishada suddenly emerged and declared, "I am a Brahman living among these corrupt people. My wife, also a Nishada, is behind me. Leave us alone." Garuda honored his mother's words and spared them, then devoured the remaining Nishadas. Still unsatisfied, he approached his father Kashyapa and said, "Father, I am going to retrieve the nectar to free my mother from slavery. Even after eating the Nishadas, I am still hungry. Please provide me with food." Kashyapa, pleased with his son's determination, told him about two cursed brothers, Vibhavasu and Supratika. Due to a dispute over their inheritance, they had cursed each other, one becoming an elephant and the other a tortoise, and had continued their fight even in these forms. Kashyapa instructed Garuda to consume them to satisfy his hunger. Garuda immediately captured both the elephant and the tortoise in his claws and searched for a place to eat them. A massive tree named Rohina suggested, "Place them on my branch, which is 100 yojanas long, and eat them." As Garuda bent to do so, the branch suddenly snapped with a loud noise. Looking closely, he saw the sages of Valkilya hanging upside down, engaged in penance. Fearing that their penance would be disturbed if the branch fell, Garuda carefully carried it in his beak and flew to his father. Kashyapa prayed to the Valkilya sages and guided them to Himavat. After safely placing them there, Garuda released the branch in an uninhabited place and finally satisfied his hunger by eating the elephant and tortoise. Strengthened, Garuda set out for the heavenly world to obtain the nectar. As he approached, chaos erupted among the celestial beings. Indra, alerted by Jupiter, tightened the security around the nectar pot. Undeterred, Garuda flapped his mighty wings, creating a storm that swept away the guards. When others tried to resist him with weapons, he blinded them with the dust stirred up by his wings. On Indra's command, the wind dispersed the dust, but the damage was done. The guardians of the nectar were injured and fled to Indra for protection. Reaching the location of the nectar, Garuda found it protected by a great fire. To extinguish the flames, he fetched water from various rivers and sprinkled it over the fire. However, his challenge was not over. Above the nectar pot, a massive spinning wheel whirled at high speed. Shrinking in size, Garuda skillfully slipped through its spokes. Two gigantic serpents guarded the pot, hissing fiercely. Using the wind from his wings, he blinded them before striking them down. At last, he seized the nectar pot and soared into the sky. Impressed by Garuda's immense power and restraint, having not consumed even a single drop of the nectar, Lord Vishnu appeared before him. Garuda bowed to Sri Hari and requested, "O great soul, I seek immortality without drinking the nectar. I also wish to always remain in your presence." Pleased, Vishnu granted both boons and declared, "I will make you my vehicle and also place you on my flag." Garuda humbly accepted the blessings and departed. Meanwhile, Indra, determined to stop Garuda, hurled his thunderbolt at him. The mighty eagle smiled and addressed the weapon, "You cannot harm me, but since you were created from the body of the great sage Dadhichi and serve as Indra's weapon, I respect you. Take a feather from my wing and return to your master." Seeing Garuda's power and wisdom, Indra proposed friendship, which Garuda accepted. However, Indra warned, "If you give this nectar to the Nagas, they will become immortal and might bring destruction to the world." Garuda assured him, "The Nagas only desire the nectar to free my mother and me from slavery. I will deliver it to them, but you may reclaim it before they drink it." Garuda then reached the Nagas and placed the nectar pot before them, declaring, "This is for the liberation of my mother and me from your servitude." The Nagas agreed, and Garuda was freed. However, before drinking the nectar, Garuda advised them, "Take a bath before consuming it, as it is pure nectar." The Nagas, trusting his words, placed the pot on darbha grass and went to bathe. At that moment, Indra, waiting in an invisible form, swiftly seized the pot and returned to the heavens. Upon returning, the Nagas were shocked to find the nectar missing. Desperate, they licked the darbha grass where the pot had been placed, hoping to absorb some remnants of the divine essence. However, the sharp edges of the grass split their tongues, making them toothed forever. The darbha grass, having held the nectar, became sacred. It is said that those who listen to the story of Suparna, Garuda, will attain divine wealth, have their sins removed, and be freed from suffering caused by snakes and demons.
Dear sisters, brothers, and beloved soulmates, I am Ramon Krishna Vadapalli, the owner of this channel, dedicated to promoting a moral and spiritual society worldwide. Our main objective is to share the epic story of the Mahabharata, which serves as a rich collection of spiritual and moral teachings. This includes the Bhagavad Gita, a profound source of enlightenment for all humanity. I kindly ask all viewers to subscribe, like, and share this channel to support our mission. The Mahabharata comprises a total of 589 stories, each contributing to our understanding of life and spirituality. Please subscribe and share and support me for more likewise. Thank you. Yours, Vadapalli Ramon Krishna, ancient yoga trainer.